Salutations, kindred souls. Welcome to another episode of Lux Martin Integration. I am Lux, and I love talking about all things healing, wisdom, and integration on this channel. Today's episode is going to be a little bit of a piggyback of the last one I did, which was very specifically about a season of discernment between boundaries and surrender. And this one is similar, but with a slightly different flavor, which is more about, are you holding space or just waiting? To me, this is something we have all experienced in life, of understanding or lack of understanding the difference between waiting on something or someone versus holding space and not putting our life on pause. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the context of relationships, although it primarily is. And it also doesn't have to be in the context of a twin flame journey, though it has shown up very clearly in that for me. But I've also seen myself grow from that chapter of the journey and use it in other areas of my life, which is why I want to talk about it today. So there are these two phases, or these two ends of a spectrum of a dynamic that is very often talked about in a spiritual journey or a divine feminine journey, which is the difference between holding space for someone, something, or just waiting. People can say they're holding space for healing, for a union, for an outcome, and it can get muddy because in our desire for something or in our attachment to an outcome, which to me are two different things. We can have desires without an attachment to an outcome. And usually an attachment to an outcome is a desire with a constriction or with a constraint or with a condition. So that's a difficult place to navigate. I've seen me do it. It's been a very, very, very challenging chapter of my journey, was to move out of a phase of waiting and into a phase where I am living and holding space for someone or something. That was probably one of the most challenging chapters of my twin flame journey. And it took me a long time. It took years for me to truly leave that place. So I feel like it deserves a bit of a deep dive. Not necessarily because I need it to click for someone who resonates with the twin flame journey, but because of the lessons learned in how I use it in the rest of my life. Therefore, anybody can use it, which to me is the point of this. So, what I've seen in my own life about, in personal reflection of waiting for healing or waiting for circumstances to change or waiting to feel better, waiting for opportunities, what I discovered is that waiting is a very frustrating energy. Waiting is not a productive energy. It's not even a hopeful energy. Like, I started to discover that there is a difference between waiting and holding space, and that waiting, especially for a long time, does get very discouraging. It becomes very next to impossible to stay positive in a waiting type energy. It's very discouraging because the reason for your waiting becomes the barrier from breakthrough. So, and then I discovered that there's a potency and a forward motion out. Ooh, the two big words are relief and expansion. When I shifted from waiting energy to holding space energy, I felt immense relief. I felt immense expansion, almost like a dam breaking of, like, oh yes, my life gets to continue while I wait upon this alignment to happen, or this possibility to make manifest. You know what I mean? And so to me, I really want to help somebody discover the energetic shift that happens, not just conceptually, like we can know about it, we can talk about it, we can know that there's a difference, but to feel the difference is truly the breakthrough. And so what I want to start with is explaining to you what holding space means and what it feels like. Holding space, it means remaining open to a possibility without trying to force, control, chase, or manipulate. It's openness, truly. Like, to me, holding space is synonymous with the concept of openness, meaning it gets to exist in your awareness without it consuming your reality or putting your reality on hold. You can hold space for the dream job. You can hold space for a facet of you that needs healing. You can hold space for a part of you that's struggling, like a part of your human that's struggling to integrate right now. You can hold space for a relationship that isn't necessarily harmoniously aligned right now. You can hold space for a big, big dream, like becoming a YouTuber and never having to work a 9 to 5 again. You can acknowledge it, you can value it, you can have desires. You also don't have to be consumed by it. It is not the obsessive consumption of your every choice. Holding space means you get to have that desire or that spaciousness, almost like a void space. And people sometimes confuse void for a negative thing. To me, and especially as a divine feminine, one of the strengths of a divine feminine is being able to uh, use the void as a tool, not as an open purgatory type space. The void is not purgatory in nature energetically. The void is the open canvas from which a divine feminine creates. Yeah. So to me, it's taken a while to build that new belief system. That void space is holding space. And that is where creativity, possibility, magic happens. Not because you're hoping and wishing or like closing your eyes in the dark and waiting for something to change. The void, allowing the space, is where you make room for different to come in. And if you're a person on this journey and you're listening to my channel, you care about healing and integration and wisdom and growth and reaching your best potential. And so to me, a void is an opportunity. It's the exciting part of like, ooh, look at me making all of this empty space. Let's wait and see what happens. Like, let's watch what fills the void. And it's this excitement, it's this expansion. Holding space feels not always calm. I wouldn't necessarily say the void or holding space feels calm, because it can be challenging to your nervous system of like, I really wish it were this way, but it's not. And I really hope it becomes this, but it's not. So I wouldn't actually necessarily say it can, but I wouldn't necessarily say I live from a lot of void spaces or seasons in my life from a place of calm. It often feels open, like emptiness. I have seen me make changes in my life that have made vast shifts of openness in my life, and letting that openness be present, like the spaciousness for room for other things. It would be the same thing as needing to take a glass of water and dump it out before you can fill it with lemonade. If the glass of water is full to the top with water and you just dump lemonade in it, you're not making space for a new phase of you or a new opportunity or a new job or a new relationship. You're just trying to cram it into an already full glass. So, holding space feels like you're pouring some of the glass out and making room for lemonade. You know what I mean? For a very, very simplistic example. Holding space feels like reception. It feels like the ability to receive. When you make space in a relationship for like, okay, this is my new set point. This is what I know I desire. This is what I know I wish to feel like. This is what I know I believe our connection can align into. I'm going to let this play. I'm going to let it be open to alignment to be received. Like again, going back to the glass, we can't receive what we know we deserve if we're still holding on to water. If we have no room energetically, spatial, like literally hour by hour in our lives, you can't make space for the dream job to drop in if you are working 6 other part-time jobs. I've seen me do it. I spent so much time just scraping by, packing my days with things that I thought I needed to do to get by or to get to the next place, that there wasn't enough space for better to drop in. And so that was a really scary place. That's another thing that I should mention on this, is the discernment between when you feel hold space, when you start to learn how to hold space, it can be terrifying, because in my real-time example of having several different part-time jobs, in my deciding to be done with those and pull back my energy and stop delegating my time to too many different things, it looked like it wasn't going to be okay. Like I wasn't going to be able to pay the bills. Like I wasn't going to be able to get these things accomplished. It absolutely looked like that. And to my human, that was terrifying. That took so much coaching and so much work to let the space be okay, and even let there be some instances where it was quite a struggle to get by because I was allowing the space to be there for the next opportunity to drop in, even if it was just a little better, not a lot, just a little. Just the next thing to drop in because I had dumped out some things from my glass. Yeah, so I will say that as you get better at holding space, it is a lot less scary. It is a lot less turbulent. But the first few times I did that, and like I said, that had nothing to do with a relationship. That had everything to do with my career, my employment, my wealth and abundance. I personally needed to learn how to choose how to delegate my time and energy better. And so in order to do that and choose me, I had to dump out the glass of these 15 other things that I thought I needed to be doing and pull back myself and make a void for a new job opportunity to drop in. And that was terrifying because it looked like I wasn't going to be able to pay the bills. It looked like I wasn't going to be able to put gas in my car or have my next hot meal some days. That's absolutely terrifying. That's absolutely real life. And I was choosing to struggle to choose to believe my new belief system that I am inevitable. What is for me is inevitable. And in my being, I will align and what is for me and repel what is no longer. Like I don't have to do to get it necessarily. I'm not saying lay down and be passive and be a couch potato. That is not what I'm saying at all, because this girl can't do that even if she wanted to. What I'm saying is that as you practice holding space and creating a void, it can look terrifying. And then as you start to trust yourself and go, ooh, I got this. Look at what happened when I let that play out. Um, it then becomes exciting and encouraging and trusting. What it was a huge, huge game changer in my ability to trust myself, my ability to know that I will always be okay because I will always take care of me, even when it doesn't look like it. Like, even when it looks like quitting 3 jobs and having no income, hoping that the right job will come, looks like I'm making a boldly idiotic move. There was something so much deeper going on around inside. And so all of that to say that holding space can mean a lot of things and it can look a little turbulent, but as you get better at practicing holding space, you can settle into this very stable, receptive, trusting, peaceful kind of like, I know what I'm doing here kind of energy. And that's quite authoritative and sovereign. And so I do encourage you to explore that and pursue that. Now I want to discern what holding space is not. And again, I've seen me do it. Holding space is not obsessing. It's not checking every sign, thinking every synchronicity means something, constantly checking your phone, constantly like trying to verify every hour of every day that an outcome is on its way. I used to be so guilty of that. Like we're all guilty of getting sucked into looking at every notification of our phone. I turned off a bunch of notifications so that I could start to teach myself that, like, no, you don't need to look on every YouTube video for verification that what you're believing is coming true. No, you don't need to um be hunting every second of, like, scavenging every second of your day for synchronicities and signs. Obsession is absolutely not holding space. There is a very large difference between powerful desire and obsession. One is very limiting, one has a wall, one has a barrier. Obsession does not make room for expansion or openness or possibility. Holding space and strong desire does. Holding space while having strong desire is like giving oxygen to a fire. You're allowing it to grow as it may, as you fuel it with the right types of emotions without putting a barrier on it has to look like this. Holding space is absolutely not controlling. It is not trying to push for a conversation, push to make people change, push to get guaranteed results. Controlling is a lack of trust. It truly is, whether it's in yourself, whether it's in your family member, whether it's in your child, whether it's in your job, whether it's in your boss, whether it's in whether it's in your car. You know what I mean? Like trying to control, push, push, push. I'm not saying that you don't get up and do things in life and fix your car and make your meals and go to work and talk to your person that you're in contention with. I'm not saying don't take action. I'm saying obsessive action, like action that consumes you because it's coming from a place of fear and uncertainty, because it's coming from a place of urgency. Holding space is the opposite of urgency. Yeah, that's a very clear distinction of holding space is not urgency. Lastly, holding space is absolutely not self-abandonment. So this is where we get into that discernment a little clearer. Um, Holding space is not refusing to live until something arrives. I absolutely saw myself do that in my twin flame journey, in my relationship journey, and I will get to that a little later in the video because this is not just about relationships. This is a huge point of like many people unknowingly stop living their life waiting for the next chapter. And that's not so easy to discern. We can say that we're waiting for the right job or we're waiting for the right relationship when in actuality, we're sticking it out at arm's length because we're using that as a reason to not look at a particular aspect of ourself that is contributing to a dysfunctional relationship, or we're not having a hard conversation because we're afraid of the results that that hard conversation will bring, because that would mean honoring yourself and thus maybe miffing somebody else or putting them at a distance, which is scary. It's painful. It is not waiting at the cost of yourself, whether that's a job, whether that's a conversation, whether that's income, whether that's self-care. And so like it is not, holding space is not self-abandonment. Let me be clear. Let me say it one more time. Holding space is not self-abandonment. Okay? You will never have to hold space at the cost of yourself if you are truly doing it right. Super duper important. And if you have further questions on that, or if you actually had a particular scenario where you were like, hey, Lux, this is what's going on in my life. Am I holding space or am I waiting? Please, I dare you to message me. I dare you to connect with me and ask the question, because I am the person that loves to get raw and real about that. I have been so lovingly called by someone her pushy friend, because I am the kind of person that loves to get real, loves to get down to the business of like, what is the real question here? And what are you really going to do about it? Like, do you understand that this is the layer you're at and this is the layer we could go at? Are you willing to peel it back more? And so because that is also my one of my favorite things to talk about, if you have a situation in your life that you're not sure if you're holding space for or waiting for, I would love it if you would reach down in my description and find my email or leave a comment in this video, if it's not that personal to share, and offer a conversation up. Yeah, offer a conversation, because in the conversation comes the discernment, which is my favorite part about integration coaching. Anyways, moving on with our lives here, let's talk a little bit about what waiting energy feels like, and what it is and what it is not. Waiting sounds like, I'll be happy when, once this happens, when they come back to me, when they see I was right, when I finally heal this, when life finally starts going this way, when I finally have this income bracket, it's a futuristic thinking. It's a futuristic reference point. Like there isn't presence in any of those statements. Waiting is a lack of presence. That's a very clear discernment that I had to understand when I was waiting for things to shift and align, or for changes to happen on my twin flame journey. Waiting was always about what was coming. I was so very not in the now. That was a very potent and difficult lesson, as that waiting is lack of presence. Holding space is very, very in the now presence in my body, in my life right here, right now. Waiting creates anxiety and hypervigilance and frustration and attachment to an outcome. Every single one of those things I've seen me do in multiple areas of my life. Waiting for the income I need to make my life more comfortable created anxiety and hypervigilance and frustration, and a need for my life to look a certain way, and the disgust with the fact that it was not looking a certain way. Waiting for my relationship or my partner to behave a certain way or stop behaving a certain way created absolutely anxiety, hypervigilance, frustration, and attachment to an outcome. I'm trying to think of one other example of where I was in a waiting energy. It was very much jobs. Like I've seen me in the last few years bounce around in all kinds of career changes and things like that. Um One particular stint I did in the insurance world, it was like waiting to see the results of the effort I was putting in, knowing that I was learning and like encouraging and pushing myself to try something new and trusting that it could be uncomfortable, but I was still capable of trying. And in that I still had this constrictive waiting energy of like, well, I did the thing, like I made 100 phone calls today. Where's the results? Like, where's the money? Where's the business? Where's the conversations? um I put myself in an energy that repelled what I was looking for, because it was this obsessive waiting, hyper vigilant, hypersensitive state of like, if this, where's that? um Whereas holding space is about flexibility and peace and openness. And again, it just came back down to like, I had to get real with accepting where I was right now. Holding space meant I had intense desire for a relationship that I was knowing what it was going to feel like and be like, and be very clear that it wasn't there yet, but that it was still a possibility, and that in the gap, in the difference, all I could do was take care of me. All I could do was acknowledge what was going on in me. All I could do was worry about me. You know what I mean? And so, in that gap, in the bridging the gap of what I was waiting for in this futuristic desire versus the disappointment of what I was experiencing right now, I had to get real with this and go, well, this is where I am. What is it about where I am? What is it about it that I don't love? What is it about it that I can appreciate? What is it about it that I can learn about myself, and who can I become? And thus, here was the big shift is, when you're in a waiting energy, it's about what has to happen. When you're in a holding space energy, it's about who am I and what do I need to become to align with or make room for a desire to come into my field, come into my space. Yeah, so those are some pretty powerful emotional and energetic differences. And that's a hard thing to do, because sometimes we don't always want to get in our feels. You know what I mean? We don't want to sit with the discomfort of being an obsessive waiter. We don't want to sit with the discomfort of, look at me abandoning and sabotaging myself and trashing my human body because I'm waiting for this thing to happen. Like, there's shame in that. There's disgust in that. There's disappointment in that. There's depression in that. That's a really scary thing to face. And that's why some people don't leave waiting energy. Like I said, I was in waiting energy for years. I would say a good like 2, 3 years. I spent my time in obsessive limerence and waiting space. And it took a long time for me to peel back all those layers of shame and guilt and disgust and self abandonment and lack of presence, and go, whoa, like, look at all of this right here, right now that I need to deal with. I don't have time to think about that anymore. Like, I better get real with what's right here in front of me. So, let's move on to some like prompting questions, some discernment questions that you might be able to ask yourself to help yourself discern whether you are in holding space or waiting. So a good question would be, if this thing I want never arrived, would I still create a meaningful life? I'll get to that one later when I close about my twin flame journey. That was a pivotal turning point question that I asked in the context of relationships of, if this person died tomorrow, would I still live a meaningful life? That's a crazy one when we think about like our most important people in our lives, whether it's family members we deeply love but we're in contention with, or our significant other, or if you resonate with a divine counterpart kind of journey. That's a really big wake up call kind of question. Another one would be, am I living today? Where are my feet? Am I living here right now today? Or am I preparing endlessly for tomorrow? That was one I spent a lot of my childhood and young adult life doing, was endlessly preparing for tomorrow instead of being very present, living in the now. Do I feel open or emotionally suspended? That's a really powerful phrase, because that took me a while to dislodge in my personal journey, in my relationship journey, of like feeling emotionally suspended, feeling hung up on, I can't move forward without this person, was a was a big one for me to get over. And it was a, how do I get over that? How do I not feel emotionally suspended? How do I not feel blocked? How do I still live my life, even with an intense desire and an intense knowing and connection with this other human being? How do I do that? Um, if you feel this emotional suspension, this caught up of like, I feel stuck emotionally, bam, that's a huge indicator right there of like you're in a waiting energy about someone or something, not in a holding space energy, because holding space still feels like forward motion. That's a huge indicator to me. Like I felt the difference of like my life still kept turning, my life was still going in when I finally shifted to holding space. It felt like days passed for real on purpose instead of wasting time and like just endlessly feeling like life wasn't going on. I was living a day, but I wasn't there in it. I was, I was, how do I say? I was waiting for tomorrow and wasting today. Anyways, now let's pivot to a little bit more positive side of what holding space actually looks like in real life, like try to give you some real examples of not only just what it felt like, but what it looks like in my life. Holding space would be like, I want this opportunity and I'm still taking action where I know I can. One of the most powerful phrases someone ever told me was that movement, even laterally, is still movement, not for the sake of thrashing around and wasting energy and time, but for the sake of data collection. And that friend of mine, that mentor of mine, broke me open powerfully in that season of my life by realizing that, like, I can still take action. It doesn't have to be a drastic action. It doesn't have to be a painful action. It doesn't have to be an action that puts me in a worse place. Lateral motion is still motion. It's still data collection and it's still unstucking. You know what I mean? For lack of a better phrase, like it's still getting unstuck when I'm moving purposefully, even if it's laterally, even if it doesn't look like progress, but it's observation. That was a game changer for me. And that I used very early on in my journey when I would beg to say, what I would dare to say that I wasn't really awake. I was learning and I was starting to open up and understand that there was so much more to life, spiritually and emotionally, and cosmically than I had ever been able to conceive at that point. It was very early on in my journey. So I would argue that I probably wasn't really even spiritually awakening yet. And that was still the beginning powerful tool for me of like, how do I get out of this stuck feeling? Anyways, oh, I lost my pages. No, I didn't. Sorry. I've always got notes here just in case you see me like looking down. I've always got notes, but then I ramble on, and that's why we're already at 28 minutes of this video. So I hope you're enjoying. But anyways, holding space feels like, or it looks like, I trust that healing is unfolding. Waiting is like feeling like I will finally start being this or acting this or doing this when I'm healed. That's a really great one that has nothing to do with anyone but yourself. For example, if we were to look at something about like an inner child wound or the way we show up in a relationship dynamic or something that we feel deeply hurt and resentful about, or we feel really stuck about because it was something that happened in our early developmental years of life, we can get stuck in this waiting energy of, oh, well, I'll just be so much better when I've healed this. Okay, great. Like start healing it. Do it right now. Do it in the moment. Whereas, I saw myself do that, especially in the context of me in relationships, not about somebody else, but in the way I was showing up in a relationship, which was, who am I willing to become? What am I willing to look at in order to show up as a new version of me in a relationship, a job, a family dynamic, things like that? Morty is down here hanging out with me if you can't tell, but I refuse to hit pause or stop this video. So here we go. We're going to keep going through Morty's investigative process here. An example. So there's an example of self-healing, of your personal healing journey. There's an example of career, which is, I want this opportunity and I'm going to take what aligned action I can. I'm going to take what responsible moves I can take for myself versus I can't be okay in life until I get the job, until someone offers me the job, until this place finds me or accepts my application. You know what I mean? Like I've seen myself do those things too in my recent career waves. And then the final example would absolutely be about relationships being holding spaces. I care about this person and remain open to the possibility of our connection versus waiting is my life is on hold until they finally choose me. Oh, that's such a deep, painful one. That's like that hits so deep in my heart because that was the epitome of my struggle in the twin flame journey. And so with those examples, I'm going to pivot into like kind of the final section of this video of if you resonate with a twin flame journey, what that looks like, because that is one of the most important phases you can go through on a twin flame journey is shifting from waiting, obsession, compulsion, limerence energy into holding space. Um, in that journey, and very specifically that journey, and if that doesn't resonate with you, in relationship with someone else. It does not matter to me if you think your spouse or your person is your twin flame or not, or if you don't buy that story, or if they're your soulmate, or if they're just your person, they're your spouse, they're your husband or wife. Like that's your partner, that's your person you spend the good majority of your time with. This still applies, this still matters because we all go through things with that person that struggle where we go through differences in alignment, differences in problems, differences in maturity, differences in growth rate. Those are some of the hugest ones in my journey. So many people believe that on a twin flame journey that holding space means constantly thinking about them, manifesting them to contact you, manifesting them to become who you want them to be, looking for the signs, putting your life on pause during a separation until they finally come back with clarity to you. That is absolutely not holding space. That is waiting, and I saw me do it for way too long. So don't, yeah. When I started to shift into holding space, I started to really take responsibility for myself. I absolutely tried to drop. I absolutely tried to let go, free my hands energetically and literally of the space that person was taking up in my life and in my headspace. I started focusing on who I was showing up as in every other area of my life. Like I had to devote my attention elsewhere for a hot second to create some motion, to create some momentum. I had to focus on my finances, on my self-care, on my well-being, on my rituals and routines that made me feel grounded. Very literally in this season of my life when I'm creating this video, I'm being asked to discern what is grounding for me and what isn't, and what rituals are kind of just an obsessive, a crutch versus healing versus soothing to me. For example, I'll be very blunt with you. If you watched my video about the chai, I've been on a long journey to craft the most delicious chai latte there ever was. And it took me a long time to realize that I was not searching for the best drink out there. I was searching for comfort. I was searching for self-soothing and self-trust. And I thought I was going to get it from what was in my mug. And I really had to learn that I was looking for this deeper layer of soothing that I wasn't giving myself. Another thing that I had to, that I'm working on right now, poorly, but doing it, is caffeine. Like I'm using caffeine to push through my days and to be very active and focused at my job and regulate myself. I use it to regulate because I may be on the neurospicy kind of spectrum. And so caffeine has been a great way for me to hone and harness myself. And I absolutely see myself abusing it to the point of a crutch of like, oh, I'm not going to be able to finish this day without an energy drink. Or, oh, I really just need a bigger cup of chai for that black tea caffeine to get my day started off right. No, Lux. Like you're working on discovering that what you're looking for is more self-regulation, more self-discipline, and the rituals in your life that you can appreciate because they feel like luxury to you, not because you feel like you have to have them to continue on in your life. So, yep, look at that, me being hot, humble, open, and transparent with you about the things that I am working on using as leaving, like making holding space versus what I'm searching for. Yeah, what I'm here for right now. All of that to say caffeine has nothing to do with a twin flame journey. What I was trying to get at is that I worked on me. I'm spending time working on me, what's necessary for my grounding, my soothing, regardless of what my person ever does or does not do. That was what I was trying to drive home in all of that nonsense. But anyways, holding space looks for me like I'm not abandoning a connection or myself. I still have the utmost belief in this person. I still have the utmost trust in myself. Um, that takes practice, that takes time and maturity and self-development. And in order when I decided that that maturity and self-development was of higher priority than being in connection with my person, things started breaking loose for me. I started finding momentum. I started discovering breakthroughs for self. And that's when my life stopped feeling like it was on pause and I started feeling like my world still kept turning. Yeah, that was a really powerful distinction. You can miss someone and still live your life. You can love someone and still grow. You can hold space for someone and still live your life to the best of your ability every day. That was powerful. I actually got to a point in my journey where I didn't know if that was possible. And then with every slowly every day passing of, okay, well, I guess I'm going to get up and choose me. Well, I guess I'm going to get up and do the best I can for me today. Well, I guess I'm going to have to choose to live like if this person died tomorrow, would I still make the best of my life or would I waste it in sorrow and misery and longing? That it, like I said I was going to come back to, that was the powerful question to me of like, if my counterpart wasn't here, not if I never met them, because I very much did and experienced what I know I can experience in a connection. If I never saw their face again, would I be okay? Would I have a great life? Or would I waste it? Would I never reach the potential of what an amazing life would look like because I got hung up on if I didn't have this someone? Yeah, that's a really hard question to ask yourself. And when you're finally ready to say, well, that's freaking lootly not, I wouldn't waste my life. Like, I've still got some stuff to do. I've still got some life to go. And it needs to be for me and it needs to be about me and not about this thing or this connection I think I need to have in order for it to be the best that it can be. And thus, that openness is there. I can still have a very powerful desire and a very powerful knowing that a connection is meaningful and it gets to be okay if it doesn't look like what I believe the end result can achieve because my life has not stopped turning while I give it room for the possibility to unfold, while I let void be okay, while I let energetic separation be okay, because I'm still relishing in what's going on for me right now, all of the other components of me and my life, and continuing to do the lessons for me. And that is truly holding space. Like, it's over here. It's a very powerful desire. It's a very big thing in my heart that I feel. And my life is still going. Like, this train is still on the tracks and moving forward. And this thing just happens to be like a car on the train, and it's not holding me down. It's not the car in the back with the brakes preventing me from moving forward. And so, again, whether you resonate with a twin flame journey or not, there is always a lesson in that for anyone and everyone, whether it's a family member that you deeply want to have a better relationship with, whether it's a job and a career opportunity or the level of abundance that you know you can achieve and it's just not lining up yet. Holding space versus waiting energy is the unblocking of yourself. It's getting out of your own way. And I say that not because I truly believe in blocks, but I truly believe in that the integration of yourself and the shifting internally of your energy from waiting to holding space is a powerful, like, dam breaking wave of momentum that has absolutely propelled my life forward. And I would love it if in this video or in connecting through someone with coaching that I showed someone else how to break that dam and how to feel like the momentum of their life is starting to move forward again. Because no one deserves to feel held back in a space of waiting energy and feel like emotionally stuck and suspended in life because of something that they aren't getting, aren't having, aren't seeing, aren't achieving. And I'm just so blessed to have gotten to discover that and figure it out for myself in this lifetime, that I would love to see if I can help somebody else find it as well. So I hope that this was a little bit of a clarifier for you, as well as like an add-on bonus content to that last video I did about the divine feminine journey, and discerning boundaries versus surrender. I hope these two have been a really deep, juicy, deep dive, seeing as we're climbing on 40 minutes here. But thanks for staying with me. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you would like to connect with me and or share this video with somebody that it might serve. Yeah. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Keep seeking, keep softening, keep showing up. Remember, the light you're looking for is the light you already are. Take care.